Hello, readers. My name is Charity, the host of Birchivert Reader Podcast. I'm introverted, but willing to talk about fantasy books. On this podcast, I'll do book reviews, author interviews, and fantasy book discussions. Come join me every week as I explore new realms and talk to amazing people. Hello, readers. This is Charity, your host of Birchivert Reader. I have an exciting guest with me today. Her name is Amber Paige. She wrote a fantasy romance by the name of Symbol of Hope. I invited her just to get to know her as an author and to get to know her book that's already released. Amber, just tell me about your book.
So Symbol of Hope is about, it follows Princess Alana. She is our main character. It is one POV. It goes through a lot of emotional loops and twists, and it's mainly about her discovering who she is and growing into this role that she has to kind of fulfill and follow. There's a lot of tribulations along the way, a lot of romance, and it's her journey. And, I grew up kind of writing it. I think it took me about 10 years to finish it.
Oh, wow.
Part of myself is in her. So it's a combo of our adventures together.
You said you wrote it in the series of 10 years. Is that based any of your characters based on yourself or anyone in your life?
Mainly myself. I think that's how it started. I say 10 years, it's kind of like an on and off process. So the idea kind of formulated when I was I think I was like 13. I was very sick at the time. I daydreamed a lot to escape. I didn't start writing it until I was 16, and I was still in that headspace. I was still very mentally and physically sick. So I was using it as a form of like escape from reality. I did finish the draft. I was in 12th grade at the time, but then I dropped it and I didn't do anything with it for years. And I would pick it up as I go, and Alana changed as I grew up and as I changed and went through my own personal journey. But nothing stuck until I picked it up again last summer, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, because I think the first thing that drew me is the cover. I mean, nobody judges a book by its cover, but I did.
Yeah.
And I love the storyline, of course. What I'm reading so far, she was hidden away in a village for a very long time, up to like age 12. I see the correlation. And she was suddenly found out that, hey, I'm a princess. That, my father I'd never heard of, never knew of, decided to say, hey, you're my heir to my throne. Let me go. You need to come with me. And we're transitioning where she has a stepmother, a stepsister. So she's really, being mistreated by that. And then I think one aspect of it is, like, seeing the reviews and everything, is that the PTSD that she experienced that she goes through. So I thought that was very interesting to see those emotions and to see that her going through that trauma and processing it, which is normal for people, but people don't talk about it. You told it that you wrote it over time. You picked it up last summer and you decided, I'm going to publish that. What gave you that push to finally do that?
I can't say for certain. I just had this like gut feeling that it's time. Like something is telling me to get this story out. Her story is finally ready, and it's to the point where I'm not questioning it anymore. I just decided to listen, and it's been a crazy ride. But yeah, I don't listen to my gut often, but when it's screaming at me, I tend to I try to listen to it.
So have you always written fantasy romance in general, or is just this story in particular?
I think I get in moods. So I think I just kind of fell into that genre because that's just where the story took place. I've toyed with writing, thrillers and mysteries. I had a paranormal romance drafted from like college. So I try not to put myself in a box just because it's so much fun to step out of it. It gives yourself a fresh mind space too. So you get to like kind of grow with your writing instead of sticking in one little space.
So do you have anything in the works other than fantasy right now?
I do. This October, I'm releasing, it's my first contemporary romance. It's a college, romance, mental health rep, found family, 2 points of views. lots of banter and, the humor moments. And I wrote it right after Symbol of Hope, and it was so different because I was kind of stepping out of like the medieval kind of vibe straight into the modern world. But
Mm-hmm.
it was so nice because I was able to take a break for if I was editing Symbol of Hope and I didn't feel like doing it the next day, but I wanted to write. I was able to switch into that different genre. So it kind of gave me mind reset.
Oh, okay. That's
Hmm.
I find that very interesting. Like people
Yeah.
needing to take a break, and it makes
Yeah.
sense. But writers usually just go gun ho and don't
Yeah.
stop until it's finished. Like even as a reader, you need a mental break from
Yes.
reading.
Yes.
So I like that. It's so
Yeah.
relatable.
Yes. Yes.
How did you approach your characters with it royalty being the main theme? Because you have a lot of complex characters in this story.
Yeah. I daydream a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I tend to use that as my brainstorming. Like that's how I brainstorm. I try to formulate how they act and react and what they say and how they respond before I get it on the page. And if it doesn't seem right, I keep replaying the scene until I feel like it's good. It took me a while to get some characters right. I will say Alden wasn't Alden. Like
Mm-hmm.
his personality, it in the first draft is nothing like the personality he has now. It took beta readers and alpha readers to kind of get me into that. Like, okay, this is where I want him, but I don't know how to get him there. So it was nice that
Mm-hmm.
they were able to help me. It took time. Alana was easier because I was able to like put myself into her to kind of view things from her point of view. Some of the characters kind of stayed the same throughout the years, so that was also easy. Darian also changed. He didn't change much from the first draft from last summer, but from like the original draft, he was like supposed to be older, like an older king who was, looking to remarry. So I'm happy that he changed because he was very creepy. um, but it just takes time. And for me, it's all about just kind of playing it like a movie until I'm happy with it.
I see like the love triangle that you've developed
Mhm.
in there, and
Yeah.
you immediately see her conflict like
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
get-go. And what inspired you to, because I want to understand like what inspired you to get to that point, and without revealing anything, but
Yeah. So I didn't intend for it to be a love triangle. It was supposed to just kind of be like her trying to talk herself out of it. Like, yes, I'm feeling
yeah.
these feelings for this person, but I can't focus on that because that is not what my future is dictating me to do. Things happen, your feelings get in the way, and your heart, kind of takes the lead, and you got to listen to it. And I think that's also a good theme in the book is listen to your heart and not always your mind
Hmm.
100% of the time, because it
Right.
can be a battle. Darian and Alden are very different and they have their similarities, but it's also, I don't know, it's complicated when I think about the two of them, without saying, without revealing too much.
Revealing.
But
Hmm.
I tried to make it clear right away that it was an internal battle.
Right. Yeah, because I think a few times she's like, I gotta stop thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah. Stop looking that way. Don't stop
Yeah,
thinking about him.
she was definitely immediately attracted to Eldrin, but
Mm-hmm.
she's
She's trying.
royalty line. She was never really interested in being married in the first place,
Yeah, yeah.
and of course, because she's a woman,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, which didn't help either because she immediately walked in with the mindset of, I'm going to get rid of this guy
Right.
and make it seem like he left on his own accord. And then Alden steps in, and that kind of adds more to the, oh, well, if I get rid of him, then he leaves.
I did have to ask because usually when it comes to like the kings, the fathers, the men rulers, they're
Yeah.
usually really dictatorial. They're really mean. They're evil a lot of times. But you wrote that him as a very kind and very generous father, and I'm like, who inspired him? Because that's not what the normal fantasy
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. My dad played a good part of that
Mhm.
without revealing things. The kind of turn also follows the path my dad took. But I wanted it to be, Alana deserved a good parental figure and a good support system. And I didn't want that to
Mhm.
come from just Meredith. So I was like, why not be different? Why not make it so the king is absolutely head over heels with his daughters and he loves them and he kind of lets them do and get away with whatever they want? And it was fun because I was able to put what I hoped my father would do growing up and what I expect a parental figure to be like. So I was able to kind of, manipulate that and add it into him. And he was a blast. Really fun to
Yeah.
write. And it healed part of my childhood.
Yeah, I can see that because he
Mhm.
even like defended her in some situations with the stepmother,
Yeah.
even though he loved the stepmother. He was like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna treat her like that," And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting to see for once, totally aspects. So I thought that was fun to
Yeah.
read. So
Yeah. Yeah. I try to make a balance because obviously he
right.
loved his wife, but his daughter comes first.
Mm-hmm. The heir to the throne. Would you say you a plotter or a prancer? Well, obviously you took time to write this, and you would
Yeah.
think daydream about
Mhm.
everything. But did you like, okay, here's my idea, then just write it out, or did you plot everything in the characters?
No, I'm a pantser. It's
You're my first
it's
pantser.
yeah, it's I often say it's very bad. Like it's bad. I'll go in with like a general idea of what I want the story to be, but the
Mm-hmm.
moment I start writing it out, it can happen after chapter 1, it can happen after chapter 2. The characters will kind of come to life and tell me how it'll go, and at that point I'm just dictating it. It's such a magical feeling, but at the same time it's nerve-wracking because you don't know what's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. So when I started Next Release in October, it
Mm-hmm.
all revolved around one daydream I had. I had to, formulate a story around it, and I knew I wanted to write it because I was obsessing over this scene in my head. Remember, I was sitting in my office at work. I had my laptop, and I just started writing chapter 1. No plans, just went for it. And it, it's like, okay, I don't know how good this is, but let's just see what happens. I don't know. The idea of plotting kind of scares me just because it's a lot. And I don't know.
Oh
For
my
me,
gosh, yeah, overwhelming.
yeah, for me, it kind of takes the fun out of it because I like that. I like that moment where the characters are like, okay, now it's my turn. And you kind of back away.
You give room to it, just whatever it
Yeah.
feels. I just want to ask you because you say you daydream. Do you have like a notebook, or
Mhm.
do you just remember all your daydreams? Because I would forget.
I remember the ones I obsess about.
Okay, okay.
I do have note column on my phone for things that
Mm-hmm.
just kind of sporadically happen, and if I don't think I'm going to remember it, I try to jot it down. I'm trying to be better at it because my memory is I don't know where it's going. Yeah, I tend to remember, but only if it's good. Like if it's a split second, I try to write it down.
Yeah, I can see that because
Yeah.
sometimes you struggle with just like going to the other room and you're like, what am I doing in here for again?
Yes, yes. And I have so many stories in progress. It's taking up too much space for like everyday activities.
You're running out of RAM space or something, hard drive space.
Yes,
Do you have any other fantasy books in the works? Because I
I
don't think Symbol
do.
of Hope has another book, but unless you're doing a spinoff or something.
So with Symbol of Hope, I do plan on doing it's going to kind of interconnect into it, so it's going to take place prior before the 10-year, like within the 10-year gap from the prologue in
Okay.
chapter 1. And then I don't know how deep it'll connect like into the book because I don't want to take that story away from Alana, but I
Mm-hmm.
do plan on something. And I don't want to say who it is because then it kind of reveals the ending, but I have that. In 2024, I have a Magical Academy Grumpy Sunshine romance
Mm-hmm.
fantasy story coming out. And then
Okay.
I'm working on a fantasy romance series
Ooh,
as
okay.
well. Yes.
So you got a lot in the works coming up.
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
The Academy one is with Alpha Readers. That's I'm hoping will go to editing in November. Anything happens with my fantasy series, I want all 3 books to be done because I'd want to rapid release them. I don't do
Okay.
well with cliffhangers. And I know a lot of people don't. So if I could rapid
Yeah.
release, that would be the dream.
So when you say rapid release, just maybe like all of 1 year, just release them all at the
Yeah,
same time?
so if
Okay.
I release the first book in May, then the
Mm-hmm.
following book might come out in July or August. Like with,
Okay.
there would be a few months, like a few months gap
I think that's
between
the
them.
hard part about, I did recently read an arc and it was so good
Hmm.
that you're still waiting for the date for it to be published and there's no date on when the second book or will be written. So I think that's a
Yeah,
great idea to do.
yeah, it's rough, and this way the story's fresh and the excitement's fresh, and you don't have to kind of remind everyone what it was
Oh,
about.
like take 30 pages to like, oh yeah, this happened and this happened. Or,
Yeah, yeah.
some troopers actually read a book before the series and I'm like,
Yes. Or they reread it and you're just like, oh man,
yeah.
I
And I'm like,
I applaud you.
I know. I can't do that. I
No.
tried, but like especially the 700 to 800 page books that people like reread before the next one, and I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
I don't know how. Or like they do it for just like a comfort read and I'm just like, man,
that's not my that's not my comfort read.
no.
That's a Lord of the Rings journey right
Yeah.
there. You're just
Yes.
going to the land of Mordor when you could just fly an eagle to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, what is the hardest thing about writing a fantasy book, and how do you overcome it?
I've discovered it's the world building. You know,
Okay.
well, I guess it started with my academy one. You have to if you have magic, you have a magic system too, along with the
Mm-hmm.
world building and the character building. You want to try to weave it in the whole thing so it's not all bam right in your face, and
Uh-huh.
especially in the beginning of the book. I had to learn how to do that and it took some time. I did some research and I read some books and to see how other authors did it.
Mm-hmm.
Building Symbol of Hope was easy because it was in my head for so long. Building like this new world for the new book, it took some time. Again, I use Pinterest a lot too for like aesthetic boards, and it helps me
Okay.
imagine things and
Okay.
even describe things. I feel like that helped a lot, especially with the world building. The magic was easy. It's more of explaining the rules of the magic can be kind of tedious and kind of redundant, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's fun. But again, you kind of want to learn how to trickle it in so it's not
Mm-hmm.
like shoved in your face as soon as you open the book.
Yeah, because sometimes as a reader, I wish there wasn't. I like world building. I love world
Hmm.
building, but
Hmm.
sometimes it can make or break a reader if you're too heavy on it.
Yeah.
And I understand the intricacies of it, but you want people to finish your book.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
personally, I don't want to read paragraphs on end of just world building. Like that's where I
Mm-hmm.
tend to get bored and I'll start skimming. Like if I could
Mm-hmm.
do a paragraph or two, give me some dialogue, give me some action, and then if you had to keep explaining the room or the situation, do it then. It just kind of break it up so it's not all
Yeah,
just it just goes and goes and
you're
goes.
right. Yeah, you're the second person I heard about the Pinterest boards, and I think that's so
Yeah.
fascinating. But it's imagery, so it helps you
Yes.
keep those things in mind.
It's so important.
Do you have like a spreadsheet or anything to keep track of characters or anything like
I
that?
I need to start. I I had to start. So with Symbol of Hope and Forever Crushed, which is my book coming out in October, it
Uh-huh.
I didn't need it because it was easy, but because
Mm-hmm.
everyone's names are easy to pronounce. In my next one, that's when I had to start coming up with really like fantasy and witch and wizard heavy names. So I had to start writing things down.
Mm-hmm.
But then I would notice I would forget things like character traits, what they looked like, what their eye colors were. My recent editor sent me a spreadsheet and I was like, this is brilliant. It's like, I think I need to start doing this instead of just having.
All right, pausing real quick, and I'm promising we'll get back to it.
I love every one of your readers, and I'm in need of your support to help this podcast flourish. Here are the few ways you can help. 1. Subscribe. Subscribing to your favorite platform ensures that you get the latest episodes right away. 2. Rate and review. Leave me a glowing review and rating on your favorite podcast platform of your choice. Your feedback not only is exciting to me, but also helps other fantasy enthusiasts discover this podcast. 3. Share. Spread the word of Booktrovert Reader Podcast. Share these episodes on social media and recommend this book podcast to your friends. Sharing this podcast creates an amazing community of listeners just like you. Make sure to check out the description below to find all my links to my social media. 4. Support through subscriptions. Your support helps me continue making content. In the description below, you will find how to support me on this podcast. By subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing, it will help Booktrovert Reader Podcast get in front of other readers like you. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and make sure to tell me your favorite fantasy book. All right, readers, back to the episode.
Oh yeah, it's like I could see that like a textbook, and you're like,
Yeah.
I know something about it mentions this, but I don't know where to find it.
Yeah. Or it's like, I know, I'm pretty sure this is how their name is spelled, but I can't remember. And it's like, you don't want to scroll until you find them again. So I think the spreadsheets are absolutely brilliant. I think there's even some apps. I haven't dove into any of those yet, though.
You're still a prancer, but you're like trying to revitalize, you know, a little plotting, a little planning.
Yeah. It's just to kind of keep up with my brain.
Yeah, we're human. You know, we don't remember everything. You know, if you do, I'm like, so you got a lot of fantasy works and you're publishing a romance. Are you still entertaining getting into other genres in the future, or is it still in the back burner?
This one story that kind of plagued my mind for a while, I don't think it'll have a romance or fantasy component. It's more of, I think it's more fiction, maybe thriller a little bit.
Okay.
But I haven't done anything with it. I think the last time I picked it up was it was like my last year of college, so like 2017. But I just kind of got back into reading or writing, and I have just too many ideas I'm trying to keep up with. It's on my list to kind of play with. If something else is calling to me more strongly, then it kind of gets pushed down.
I get this vibe of exactly how a mood reader does things. And I love that because because even in work, you know, I'm just like, this is my attention, this is what I'm feeling like, and I'm doing it for reading as well. So it's like it's refreshing to hear that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely a mood writer. It's all, like, I don't hate it because I don't want to ever have to force myself into doing something. So I always try to have some kind of work in progress so I don't get distracted, or if I don't feel like it, then I try not to have too many open at the same time because then I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like right now I have the spinoff for Forever Crushed in the work, and then the next story of my fantasy series, so I can kind of flip-flop it, you know, if one gets not too boring, but if I get distracted by it and want to kind of dive back into fantasy.
It's like, I hate saying this, but do you like have a day job?
I do.
It's right. Yeah.
I do.
So may I ask what you do for?
Yeah, I'm a blood bank supervisor at a hospital I live around. It can get more complex. Being on the supervisor end, I'm doing a lot of reviewing, making sure everything runs smoothly, and a lot of meetings. It can be a lot of running around because I'm also in the lab as well as my office.
Yeah.
It can be hard to juggle, but also kind of why I wanted to write, to kind of give myself an outlet. I
mean, are you like a morning writer or evening writer?
I'm a little bit of everything.
Okay.
It just, honestly, it's whenever the mood strikes. If I feel like writing and I have time in the morning, then I try to do it in the morning. Or if I'm on my lunch break and I want to try to get a few words out, then I'll try to do it then. But I think my heavy writing is mostly after work. That's when I'll just be on my computer and I'll just go.
I heard a few times that it's like a form of self-care for some people to be writing. Like, maybe I should take up writing.
Yeah. I mean, it has its dark side too. I kind of joke, but writing sent me back into therapy. When I started last summer, I didn't know that when you write, part of yourself gets exposed, and I was having feelings come up that I thought I got over, and I ended up just kind of bottling down. The imposter syndrome got really dark
Ooh.
for me, and I had a complete mental break. I was like, I need to get back into therapy. I need help. I can't keep going day to day like this. And it was dark for a while. I avoided writing for a few months, but I also missed it. So it never really writing never became the villain, I guess.
Right.
If anything, it saved me, because who knows how long I would have really lasted until I cracked. But I'm able to use writing as a way to heal and a way to cope, a way to distract myself and have fun. The imposter syndrome, it exists. Every person goes through it at one point in their life.
Right.
But I kind of use it, kind of educate people too, and just be like, hey, you're exposing yourself when you're writing. It might come up. Don't let it win. Kind of acknowledge that it's there and let it ride out, because the second you bottle it down, it's going to come back stronger. It will get worse before it gets better.
I like that. I was going to ask you anyways, because like you said, anyone and everyone can go through imposter syndrome. And I definitely feel like I'm going through my ups and downs with imposter syndrome. But I think that's something I probably need to myself start acknowledging it, as you would say. I think once you acknowledge, what would you say that you did next in that process to not let that imposter syndrome get to you?
It took a lot of practice. I would kind of just say to myself, okay, I hear you. I understand, because when you go through imposter syndrome, I kind of read and I kind of learned that it's because your body's trying to protect you from the unknown. It doesn't know if you can handle whether A or B happens. So I took it as, my brain's trying to protect me, even though it's being mean. So I would, just kind of say to myself, hey, I hear you, but I don't agree with what you're saying. As crazy as it sounds, you kind of have to talk yourself off that ledge and just be like, I understand you're there, but I don't want to go down that road. Like, I don't have time to kind of listen to that negativity right now. Once you calmed yourself down, I just recommend do something you enjoy, whether it be watch something funny on YouTube, or watch a comfort show, or read a book, or listen to some music. As long as you focus on your feelings and don't push them down, because the second you push them down, and it might come back the next day, but it'll come back stronger. Again, it took time for me to get there. I feel like I wouldn't be where I am without seeking mental health treatment, finding a support system of my own. It's comforting also to know you're not alone. There's other people going through this, and other people who can relate. All you have to do is ask for help if you need help. 99% of the time, people are going to help you because they can relate.
I think people need to understand it's normal. It's okay to be going through something like that, but it's what you do to get yourself through it. It's so pivotal into moving forward with your dreams, your aspirations, your goals, So it's encouraging to me, because it's something I struggle with as well.
You take it one day at a time.
And don't give up. I think that's, even if you want to.
Yeah.
So you went a self-publishing route. Did you try to go to a publishing house at first, or you just went straight to self-publishing?
I did. I did try to query. I got impatient. I got tired of getting the generic rejections, or just no rejection, or just no response at all. After researching, I liked the prospect of self-publishing more, because I'm able to keep my rights. I'm able to keep my story, and I don't have to alter it to fit Big House's image of my story. And whatever's in right now. And self-publishing in itself is its own monster, but I absolutely think it's worth it. I encourage people. I work with and I talk with a lot of new authors. I mean, I'm still new. I'm still a baby, but I try to offer as much advice as I can, because when I was starting, I had so many questions, but I had no one to ask. It was a process, but it was absolutely worth it.
I've been coming across a lot more indie authors lately, and I've been finding that they're just as amazing writers and talented storytellers that I'm like, wow, they're coming out of the woodworks right now.
Yes.
They're coming, especially with Kindle Unlimited being more accessible to the average reader. Did you find that helped you with your writing, getting it out there?
It absolutely did. I was able to reach more people, and more people have access to it. I have been kind of watching a slow uptick, which is really nice to see. And Kindle Unlimited KDP has its own downside, but I feel like every big name, know, is a challenge, and you just kind of have to go with it, unfortunately, until something more friendly comes along. But it's super helpful. It's given me access, and it gives everyone really access to kind of follow their dreams in the author route.
I know that sometimes just being able to have more access to titles is what's beneficial. Like you said, it has its downfalls, but it might be the one thing that helps authors just get in front of people. When you're reading fantasy, this is kind of almost off topic a little bit.
That's okay.
What is the one thing that you wish that authors would stop doing?
That's a good question. The first thing that comes to my head is to stop trying to be like other authors. I feel like some stories are kind of too similar to other stories. I kind of just wish authors would kind of show themselves more instead of trying to be like other big name authors, because everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own sense of uniqueness. Readers get bored. I don't want to read the same type of book by a different author my entire life. I don't want to read the same kind of story because then I'm going to get bored. I understand there are some worlds and some, I guess the term would be kind of like myths or mythologies that are extremely similar, but throw a unique twist to it. You don't have to kind of take the standard route.
Right.
Because as soon as you throw a twist, that's what's going to keep my attention and the reader's attention. That's when you kind of learn like the type of writer you are too. A lot of romance books, I'm reading more of them now that I'm writing them, and I'm discovering a lot of authors follow the third act breakup. It's a common formula. I won't lie. When I started writing, I thought I had to do it, even though I absolutely hated it. I was like, I don't want to do this, but I have to do it. I don't want to. I feel like it's kind of an easy way out, but challenge your brain, challenge yourself to kind of think outside that box. There's so many more options than just following that road. For my book coming up, it takes a deep dive into mental health, and it becomes more of an internal struggle than an external struggle. I think that, follows in terms of fantasy too. I feel like a lot of books try to be like ACOTAR, or what's another one? That's what I'm noticing.
I don't know. Everyone is like ACOTAR.
Yeah, which is fine because like the Fae world, I know it's very linear. It has its own, myths and rules, but put a twist to it. Like it's okay. You can change it up a little bit, give it some originality, and just have fun with it. Because I think that's important too. It's not all about making money. It's just about having fun and providing an escape for yourself and for your readers.
I think that's what's really tough too, because not only as a reader has to not always comparing everyone's books creatively, because there are going to be similarities. There's not always going to be the total original ideas. At the same time, it's like you said, everyone is trying to mimic some form of whatever's popular or whatever's going around. And it's like, I did read a book that felt so similar to ACOTAR that I was just like, oh, I can't do this. It's like I wanted to love it because they did put their own unique twist, but they were putting elements that were in there. So I can see that. I can see that. Just to kind of start wrapping things up, what advice would you recommend to others authors who are starting out self-published?
Just go for it. Don't let the idea of publishing scare you. That scared me for a while, and that threw me off track for a very long time. Get your story out, have fun doing it, find a support group. I feel like that's very important with other authors who you can ask questions, ask advice, brainstorm, create your own little community, because self-publishing, it's a challenge. It's a roller coaster. It's going to have its highs and it's going to have its lows. And my best advice would be find someone you can share those moments with, because it's rough when you're doing it alone.
I can see that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amber. Just to tell about some places that you can find your book online and where they can go to get it.
Yes, so Symbol of Hope is available on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. It is also available on Barnes & Noble, just online, not in stores. Maybe in the future, who knows?
Just make sure you get a selfie, with your book in Barnes & Noble. So, all right. And I'll just list everything in the show notes to be able to find her information. Make sure you follow Amber on Instagram because it sounds like she has so much going on in the future that I'm excited to see what she has going forward. Thank you so much, Amber, for joining me.
Thank you, readers, for listening to my podcast on fantasy books. I hope you're enjoying the content and finding it helpful in discovering new books to read. If you have a moment, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at BookTrovertReader to stay updated on new episodes and other book-related content. Thank you again for your support and happy reading.